Hello, everyone. So we are here to talk about video. V is for video. So my name's Dan. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, as much as something can in this business be, because I've been focused on it for many years. And it's something that has obviously driven a lot of growth and revenue in our field of mobile games. So we're going to talk in depth about video, and it's a super powerful format. We all know that like sight, sound, motion brings out the best in content, right? So if you're advertising a game, a developer, a player can understand what that game is really going to feel like just by watching it for 5 seconds. Or if it's a brand, you get to understand what the kind of emotion that brand is trying to drive through that video experience. So it's been very powerful. So we're going to kind of discuss like trends, how developers can take advantage of video, and we've got kind of a myriad of perspectives. So we've got an indie developer, a global publisher, we've got a SSP mediation company represented, we've got a attribution service. So we've got kind of the full representation of all sides of it. So we're going to delve into everything. So as far as kind of panels go, I like to keep things moving, keep them quick. We got 5 people with big opinions, hopefully not big egos. So we'll cut them off if they're going too long, and we'll try to save some room for questions. So one of my rules with panels is not to let people introduce themselves because they just can't help themselves. So we're going to do a little modified introduction. And so what we're going to do is tell me, your name, your title, but then what is your company's mission and what are you relied upon to do for your company, both in like 1 sentence each. And then what is your favorite video game of all time? Any platform, any genre, any era, doesn't matter. All right, so that should be like 20, 30 seconds. I'll go first so you can think. So I'm at HyprMX. Our goal is to bring brand video to developers to help them grow their revenues. So my company relies on me to build long-term relationships with developers so I can help them grow their businesses and leverage tools like video effectively. My favorite game of all time is actually from like 1986, 85, Below the Root. Anyone? PC game, Apple II. It was like an emotionally deep experience for me and crazy weird. It opened me up to video games. So look it up, Below the Root. All right, we'll just start here.
John Koetsier. I'm trying to remember the order.
Right. Company's mission.
Company's mission, making all marketing measurable. Third thing.
What you do for that company. What do you really do?
My title is Mobile Economist. What that means is I learn stuff and I share stuff. And you had...
what's your favorite... Oh, and what is your company? I don't think you mentioned it.
The company is Tune, making all marketing measurable. And favorite video game of all time? Whoa, this is going back a long time. I'll say Donkey Kong. What the heck?
Hey everyone, I'm Josh. I'm from Eastside Games. And we make casual games that don't suck. And we cater to have games that have a very interesting story to them. Kind of offbeat story.
So what do you do for them?
I do very little. I'm the CEO, so I hire very talented people and just kind of let them do their job. And favorite video game? Here's Atsui for Sega Genesis.
Hi, so my name is Corentin. I'm working from GameLoft. Our goal is to create a mobile game for everyone. When I mean everyone is like all over the world. My position, I'm a programmatic account executive for the US. So basically I'm in charge of the programmatic offer for the US, which means like dealing with the SSPs or also with the agencies, trading desk. There is like account management, but also like developing the business. And my favorite game was GTA, Grand Theft Auto. It has been really like big influence for me to discover the open world, and after all the one that have been developed.
Hey guys, my name is Samir, and I'm the VP and GM of Business Development for InMobi. The mission of the company is, we are a 10-plus-year-old company, and we are a global monetization platform. Native and video is the DNA of the company. So basically, again, we are here to help all the partners who, this is an end-to-end ecosystem solution. And
what you do for them?
I head the entire supply business development for InMobi, focusing on North America, Europe, and LATAM. And one of my favorite real old school games, I don't think Bandai Namco is Pac-Man. So I still play that.
Nice.
My name is Andrew Gerhart. Our company mission is to help mobile app developers optimize yield by connecting with premium brands. Our company is Aerserv. What was the third thing?
What you do.
What do I do? I'm the COO, so I focus on mainly operations, products, and strategic partnerships. And the other thing was favorite game.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tie, but probably Tech Mobile.
Oh, yeah. It's a good one. Nice. It's too late. Yeah, Bo Jackson. Yeah. All right, we're going to start with Josh. We're going to have a question for each individual first, and then we'll open things up. So Josh comes from the indie dev world. He's the poster child for indie development. So explain to us how you guys leverage rewarded video, particularly in Trailer Park Boys, and to really kind of unleash your revenue potential there. And then, from there, like, where do you see that going? Is there a next step that you guys can take to leverage it even further?
Does a poster child mean like the kid's missing?
That's a good question.
That's what I always think.
It's a weird saying now that I think about it. Yeah.
That's all I can think.
So, especially for our studio, since we've grown from about 12, 15 people to now we're hitting 80 with a couple people working remotely, so kind of two offices. It's been really good for growth because we could grow based on that additional revenue. So the interesting thing about rewarded video is it changes from, there's no one answer about what sort of amount you're going to make from rewarded video or integration or what you can plan for, but you can plan for an additional anywhere from 12 to 30 with our average is about 18% total revenue in the studio. So I would say that's sort of the biggest thing that we have kind of focused on from growing from being 12 to having people more specialty. So we have someone that's just focused on optimizing that, not only the video itself, but also the experience for the player. So we're obsessed about player experiences. So we really want to make sure that people really feel good with rewarded video. And then the other thing that we were chatting about backstage was we've also seen some really interesting stats on with rewarded video. If you integrate it deeply into design, you can have some very positive effects on that. So what we've seen is we're talking about individual video completed views that our magic number is 10 to 12. So if we can get a player to watch 10 to 12 videos over time, there's a good chance that they're going to then become a paying player. And then our average videos that people watch per day are kind of fall in line with that. So then we have other benchmarks. So for players that are playing that are just in watching videos per day, the average across is like 4 completed videos per day. We're seeing like 3 videos in the other tier, and then high spenders we're seeing 7+ completed views a day. So the most interesting thing we found when we were digging into this data was it can be a plus to the system where players really find it. The other thing that we see from our community is one of our biggest complaints to our community is rewarded video isn't working. I'm not getting my reward. You're ripping me off. So people want it to work.
If you could publish a blog post about those stats, then all of us ad networks will use that to push all the last people who are still not sure about rewarded video over the edge, because like that's gold right there. Yeah.
I wait till I get on my party invites first, and then then I'll do that.
Or you could sell that. Like, which ad network will give me a lot of money to publish this with them?
I like what these guys are doing over here, and then I make it.
All right, we're gonna go to an ad network with Samir. All right, so Samir, from the perspective of a big global ad network like you guys, you have a pretty unique perspective. So what kind of trends, like what opportunities are you seeing with publishers plus video that maybe not everyone can see because they don't have such a wide view that you guys have? And at the same time, what are some of the challenges? Where are people getting stuck?
So guys, see, InMobi is as I mentioned, this is a 10-plus-year-old network, which is now a very mature platform. We have 19 global offices, and we are serving close to 130-plus countries. So we have a very mass reach here. And we were a traditional network which started from banners, and again, they have a DNA of native, and we were late to the video party. But still we have seen tremendous growth in the biggest investment that we're doing right now, within the organization to globally help the publishers, especially keeping focus on video, whether it is rewarded video format or video spatial or native video format, right? How it gels up, because the diversity of the publisher reach that we have, it's a very fair balance of gaming versus non-gaming. Now, 2017, we've seen almost 200% growth quarter on quarter on video. The programmatic dollars are really flowing in well, because we are one of the fastest viewability support matrix providers in the industry today. We have the highest mode scores which are available. So the in-app video inventory, especially focusing on gaming, where the focus is we package and sell on audience, and we basically form the negative or the positive cohorts of all these segments on the users. So we've seen tremendous growth. We'll continue to double down, invest on making sure that the product is very robust in terms of when it comes to technology. When these are also related to the viewability standards or all the latest jargons that we have to be and bringing in the innovation of interactive videos and all sorts of the playable ads, which are really the buzzwords these days. So that's what we visualize.
So we'll go to Andrew next. So as a supply side platform with both ad serving and mediation, you guys kind of have a middleman's perspective in that you work closely with publishers and networks and DSPs and all these different types of companies all kind of coming into your hub. What do you see as kind of the trends in the adoption of video in that context versus say other ad units that you might work with? And then are there things like unexpected developments or trends that you're seeing from that view of all that kind of coming together, like what's really working on the programmatic side? What are you seeing that maybe others can't see?
Sure. So I don't think there's any argument or debate that video is like the best performing ad format for mobile. But what we see, I think, is that when something is new, we see performance marketers get in there, performance advertising companies get in, the cost per install, cost per completed view, publishers adopt it, and brands are far behind. Now, some brands are early adopters, but then you have lots of laggards. You have guys that are still wrapped up in desktop. You have guys still wrapped up in television. You have DSPs who still don't even do mobile at all. Some guys who are just starting to do video. And so the market really gets segmented by those big companies. There's huge companies that are now just shifting and starting to figure out how to transact on mobile. All those things that Samir just mentioned, like viewability, which is silly to even talk about, but it's a big deal for these brands, figuring out how to execute through a programmatic method. So sort of what we're seeing on the demand side is people still sort of slowly moving in. There's a convergence of brand and performance, where these brands are still trying to figure out how to execute on mobile. Does it make sense? Is it backing out to whatever metric they're trying to execute against? And on the publisher side, I think they're seeing, because of depressed metrics on banners and interstitials, they're trying to figure out, how can I integrate video into my app? Do I have a place for rewarded video? For games, if they have IAP, it makes sense, but does native work? Does interstitials work? And I think, we try to help publishers and the advertisers on both sides.
Yeah, it's something you hit upon with the brands. I mean, our network is focused on working entirely with brands, and it's been interesting moving them from desktop to mobile, because it took a while to get them excited about mobile and excited about games and excited about the rewarded placements. These are all kind of newer things for them. And then all of a sudden they got scared about fraud, because they figured out fraud finally on the web. And then they're like, oh, wait, I don't understand fraud on mobile. And viewability is a big concern. So the moat thing and working with these guys like Integral Ad Science is super important to them.
It's a big shift. It's a big shift. And some of those technologies that existed in desktop are just getting started in mobile. Yeah. Moat was there, but there's a lot of bugs with those systems.
Yeah. All right, let's go to John from Tune. All right, so you have the view of the world of UA attribution in particular, right? Like helping track where all these dollars are flowing and what's happening. So what's on your mind for video in 2017? It seems like a relatively mature ad unit, but everyone's always innovating playables or playable end screens, all sorts of different stuff. What are some of the things you guys are seeing? Are there challenges that you have kind of keeping up with all these different ways that video is kind of now manifesting itself?
Yeah, it's an interesting space. We've heard some cool things already. When I look at video, when I think about video, I think about it on two sides, right? I think on the user acquisition side, and I think also on the monetization side, right? I think we've mostly heard about the monetization side right now, but the user acquisition side is really interesting as well. And for some of the same reasons that have been mentioned here, video is amazing for user acquisition. We see amazing results there. Not necessarily intrinsically because there's some magical thing about it, but it separates the sheep from the goats, right? There's a reason why the App Store, the new App Store in iOS 11, is going to be very, very video-centric, right? I think Samir mentioned it gives you a chance to see what you might experience. And so the people that actually click through on that experience are much more likely to have to be quality users, to stay engaged, to play the game, use the app, whatever it is. So that's really, really interesting from just a user acquisition point of view. From a monetization point of view, I think we've seen a sea change in maybe the past year, maybe a little less than that, a little more, depending on where you are in the spectrum and everything like that, where we see like significant amounts of income from video ads, huge amounts. Rewarded video is extremely significant, especially for non-gaming apps, but also in some gaming apps where you're getting a virtual currency or a reward or something like that. It's over half of some apps' revenue, which I think maybe a year, 18 months ago, we wouldn't have believed, because in-app purchases was the one true way to effectively monetize, and ads was not giving you a huge amount of revenue, a huge amount of lift. So we're seeing publishers now who are thinking of ad whales, as I was talking about when we were backstage, right? And not just in-app payment purchase whales, but ad whales. Who are my ad whales? Because I'm making significant amounts of money off of them, and finding ways to, okay, who are these users? What do they look like? How can I find lookalikes of those ad whales? That's an interesting proposition. And some of the top publishers that I've talked to, talking serious publishers with hundreds of millions of monthly average users, looking into that in depth.
Ad whales. All right, so Corentin, so you coming from GameLoft, we were just talking about this backstage. A few years ago, GameLoft woke up one day and said, no, we're not going to run with all these ad networks, and we don't have control over the ad experience that our players are having. So you built everything from the ground up, and with a big focus on programmatic. So what lessons have been learned about all this space and going it on your own? Are you seeing big opportunities by kind of building your own tech and leveraging all the programmatic pipes that are out there? What do you have to say about video and the flavor that you guys have gone about it?
Yeah, so you're definitely right. It has been a big challenge, a big decision for GameLoft. So we've launched our first game in 1999, and 3 years ago we took this decision to remove the ad network and to start to create our own ad server and create the sales team and all the offer. So first we started with direct sales, so IO based, and 1.5 years ago we started Programmatic, so the integration with various partners. And what we've seen is first it was a great decision, even if it involved a lot of investment. We see some really, really good results. We're generating a lot of money, and especially in Programmatic, since we've launched it only 1.5 years ago. Now on some market, we really generate the same revenue as the direct sales, with way more people in terms of sales team. And also what's interesting, and especially for video, is that we're also seeing more and more partners like brands or agency that used to buy IO-based direct sales that is now moving the budget toward programmatic. So we keep the relationship. We used to work for the standard unit with those agencies and brand, and now for display and video, they're moving to programmatic. And our sales team is focusing on some big, big integration like native event, native integration, or rich media unit. So definitely in terms of programmatic, I think everyone says it, but revenue, video is generating most of the revenue. It's really, really huge. What we can see also in terms of trend, what I'm seeing me on being in front with the client is that we start to see more and more content that is adapted for video. Whereas in the beginning, we were seeing we were receiving some video that lasts 1 minute, which is totally not adapted for a mobile usage. But we really start to see some video that lasts 10 seconds or even 5 seconds, which is really good for the user experience. and also for the brand in terms of KPI. We also see some vertical video, and we support vertical video, so that's interesting in terms of trends. And obviously, as it has been mentioned, I think that viewability is key, even if, as Andrew was saying, excuse me, it's not totally, even for mobile, Mod as an SDK, IAS also, like the brand, they want to buy viewability, but they're not totally ready. We have still some work to do on the technique side. And brand safety, especially I think for mobile publisher. I'm seeing a lot of brands that still see mobile gaming as not such a quality content. However, we're saying that it's changed, but I think it's really something that we need all together to work on, to show to the brand that our inventory is a quality inventory with good performance.
The hilarious thing there is that, for casual games, the audience is majority women, and women, 52%, 55%, somewhere around there, and many in that age range, 20s, 30s, 40s, that are really, really key to spending money. I mean, and brands haven't picked up on that yet.
It's an education. It's a process of education because they're used to buying. Sorry, many of the brands are used to buying on. Put me on ESPN. Yeah. Put me on CNN. It's all about
adjacency.
It's all about the content and showing that to their boss, not necessarily the audience. And so you have to educate the market, which is a long process, about, hey, it's a valuable demographic. They're spenders. They're actually playing these games, and so it's a long process.
They're not all just teenagers in their bedroom.
This is something our company's been working on for years, and going into all these agencies and brands and pitching why games are great, why incentivized placements are great, and there's pushback. Some get it, some don't. We're seeing a little bit of some loosening up, and I think having Facebook have a rewarded video product, AdMob going into rewarded video mediation, AOL has a value exchange unit. These things are helping grease the wheels. I remember I had a conversation with someone from Facebook, like, you guys have been trying to pitch this for a long time. I was like, man, it's tough. Yeah, but and it's interesting. It's partially more in New York, where we're headquartered. There's more resistance than there is in LA. We get more brands and agencies in LA saying, like, hey, actually, I want to do an in-game integration. Who can we work with? So things are moving, but it's an uphill battle. Yeah, long one. All right, let's do something here. The two game developers in the house. Poll. So should a newer, maybe unproven new studio that's got a game, not even maybe in soft launch yet, should they worry about integrating a mediation service and 3 networks and really going deep on ad monetization before they even really get any success? Is it something you can worry about later and focus your time now on core loop and all that? Or is it like, no, you should nail that stuff early because it's going to be such a big part of what you're doing?
I'm going to start. I really think that this is something that needs to be think and integrating during the development or even before, during the beginning of the game. I think you need to think of the game and think where you're going to put your ads, how you're going to put them. For instance, if we're taking rewarded video, in most of our game we integrate displacements natively. So, for instance, if we take Disney Magic Kingdom, so this is a tycoon game where you create your own theme park. Like, if you want to get to your reward video, you go to the theater, and inside the game, inside the theme park, you have a theater, and you go there and you watch your video and you get coins to create new attraction. And I think this is really the way you need to think about it.
Yeah, you can't tack that on
at the beginning, and this is the best way to do it. And in most of our game, I would say, or all the new one, this is the way we integrate rewarded video. And I think this is the one that works the best. But moreover, it's not because you've started to create displacement that you don't need to optimize it. Because obviously you're going to have the feedback, you're going to track the activity, the retention, and you always need to update that. I think what's also interesting nowadays when we integrate viewability partner is that you can see some placements that you were thinking that were great placement, but when you look at the viewability score, you're like, wow, no, maybe it's not great. And finally, if you sell based on viewability, then you're not making money. So I think it's interesting also to think about integrating viewability partner because it shows you how really your placements are performing, and it helps you to optimize those placements. yeah, I think that's the way we are doing it, and we will start.
So for us, it just depends on the type of game you have, and how we've changed things around to view video is if you can't have team vision on, you want video in your product, then we just don't put it in, and we'll build the product without. Because if you try to tack it on later, it's just going to be garbage, and it's not going to be a good player experience. You're going to get you're going to be like the fourth. You know, have you ever heard anyone come back from a movie and be like, "I'm so glad there's 5 ads now. Like, I need to see what the new Toyota Corolla is like. My life is complete." Like, no one gives a shit about that, right? Like, you got to make sure that it's something. Whatever you put in your game, it's something that the player gets out of it that feels good. But what I will say is, if you're a developer and you're thinking about games, and then you do have sign off from your entire team that you want to put games in this, you want to put ads in, and this is what the video ad's going to look like, and this is the call to action. Our rule of thumb is we always want it to be user triggered. So we always want the user to be able to have the choice to watch the video ad or not, or any of our things. We never do any ads, and that's just our philosophy as a studio, because we just don't want it to be invasive. Even for our completely free games. And the second thing is video ads are awesome. Playable video ads are really awesome. They're also like having small apps within your game. They're huge. They can cause problems. You have to have your engineering team involved. You have to have your QA team involved. And the interesting trend we're seeing now is these ad companies now scrambling to get almost like player QA to try to resolve these problems that happen. So all of us developers are panicked about getting our games a certain size so they can be downloaded without connecting to Wi-Fi, and we're finding playables are pushing us through the limit. With Trailer Park Boys, we had some playables crash our game or cause crash on lower-end devices, or some people that were caching ads so they could play even when they're offline were causing bandwidth issues for people. So then people that are on limited data plans get charged for that. Like, all this stuff we never had to worry about when it was a banner ad or when it was desktop, because it didn't matter about performance. So another thing to really budget for your QA for ads is dig deep into the QA to make sure. There's nothing worse than seeing a lower star review on your game because you added an ad. It would be like the same thing going to the movie and the Corolla commercial actually makes the movie stop. Fuck Toyota.
That would suck. Yep. Awesome.
If I could add to that's an interesting question, right? Should you have a playable ad in a game, right? I mean, somebody's in a game experience, they're in, and sure, you might, for a reward video, you might take them out for 10 seconds, 15 seconds or something. You have a little playable ad in there. There hasn't been huge adoption of playable ads so far, and maybe that's one of the reasons. I can see it in a non-gaming app, but I kind of hate to see it there. What's interesting about just hearing what you guys are saying there is that if you can design it right from the beginning, you can monetize all your users, not just 5% of your users or 2% of your users or something like that. And maybe if you're Supercell, you don't need to monetize all your users, right? But maybe if you're not, you do need to monetize everybody. And I think that's the cool thing about designing at the beginning, to have both in-app and video.
All right, so similar perspective, or similar scenario, but from the InMobi and Aerserv perspective. So when a developer is decided, yes, I am going to do ads in my new game, what are the kind of like must-have technologies that they should be thinking about integrating? And feel free to give us your completely biased perspective on your own platforms. But maybe at a more general level, like how much do they need? What do they need? What are the essentials?
So no sales pitch at all. I think, look, you have to have. I think nowadays you have to have the ability to do both the brand and performance. And so pick a partner who can do programmatic, pick a partner who has technology to work with different SDKs. Obviously, ad caching is super important, as you mentioned, having unique technology around server side versus client side. So you need to evaluate your vendors and make sure they really understand video and all those little nuances. That's certainly important.
Dropping like flies.
Yeah. We have networks, we have platforms, we have SSPs, we have attribution partners and publishers. So we as advocates, as a network, right? A non-biased approach. We've seen success stories at the level of GameLoft. GameLofts of the world have actually made their own mediation platform. But at the same time, there are Zingers of the world, there are Scopelays of the world, right? There are Electronic Arts of the world who are still using a platform, a mediation platform. So, we always give a very unbiased nuance to the developers. End of the day, there is always a strategy. Are you looking, of course, you are there with a wish to actually grow your game or your application, right? We've seen enough of studies out there in the industry that 80% of the users are actually gone in the first 90 days. So you got to have a retention strategy for the 20%. Now, the right architecture, you need revenue at the same time, right? When to actually place an ad, what is the nature of the ad, right? Who are the initial mediation partners if I have to start with one, basically? What kind of SDKs we have to put in, right? I think, again, video, as we all know, with the infrastructure enhancement happening, I would say it's a must-add unit. The kind of experience it gels in with the flow of the game, etc. And then, as we've heard that, basically, if it's an opt-in ad unit consumption, the user actually has a serious intentions to actually go and take the rewards or whatever. Right? It could be any kind of reward that the user is actually getting. So we always advocate the independent developers or large-scale publishers to actually start align your strategy. What's your goal? What's your target? What's your objective? Do you have user acquisition budgets? If yes, how many? You got to have a very clear strategy. And we should, as per alignment of your strategy, you should start with a mediation service. And, enough of sales pitch can actually come for which networks or demand sources to start with. There are pros and cons. So, that's my view.
All right. So now I'll throw it to John on the attribution side. So heard from the developers, someone's new, starting up, depending on your model, put in some networks, maybe some mediation. These guys recommending what they, you've got this kind of, third person, view on all of that, right? Should developers feel confident that, when a video is being shown in their game, if someone does install it, that, that's going to be tracked effectively, that they're going to get paid for that install? What's your confidence level that Samir and Andrew's companies are treating, John and Corentin's companies fairly? How good is the tracking out there? And I don't just mean at Tune, but, across your set of the big 3 or 4 competitors. How confident should we be?
Fairly confident. I mean, the major players in the industry are generally good and trustworthy. There's little doubt about that. There are lots of fly-by-nights. There is lots of fraud out there. You definitely need a fraud solution. We've been looking at fraud for a long time and launched a massively updated suite just a couple weeks ago at our post-back event. So you definitely need that. Look, the deal is, if you're an app marketer, if you're a mobile marketer, you're going to be working with many different partners. You're going to be, you're almost no major mobile marketer, app marketer is working with one single partner. Everybody that we see that's super successful is working 10, 20, 30, and upwards from there. So even if they're perfectly trustworthy and you see all their numbers, do you really want to look at 40 different, log in and see 40 different screens of data, dashboards? You need a place where it's drawn together. You need a single source of truth. You also need independent verification so that you have a place to go as an ad network and as a publisher, a mobile publisher. And you can say, okay, here's an independent source of truth. What's going on? What's happening? What are we seeing? And you can have a rational discussion over the numbers. And it's not my numbers versus your numbers. It's here's the numbers, right? So that's very, very, very valuable.
All right. Anyone else want to talk about attribution or being screwed by anyone? Anyone got some gripes?
Yeah.
I bet you do.
When you're a developer, you really just got to think about what's best for the player. So you want to make sure that you're hyper-focused on how good your game is and the player experience. That's what you need to focus on. So what I see more often than not when, indie studios or people that I talk with in the industry are like, hey, I got this. And they're so obsessed with like all of the tools and all of this sort of enterprise level solutions that they put in their game that they forget about that player experience and making money off your game and growing your game. So you can always grow into attribution partner. You can always grow into adding more video networks. You can always grow into branded, but until you have that base set of data and that success, don't waste your time. Like, start small, use whatever tools that you can afford that allow you to measure, and then grow over time. If you want to go into the user acquisition route and look at that, just start doing your own buying on Facebook. There's no silver bullet. You have to figure this stuff out yourself. If you want a successful game that makes money, nobody can help you do that. Like, you just have to kind of figure out all this stuff yourself and see your benchmarks, and then go to the companies and say, hey, this is the benchmark I got from this. Can you do this? And then the other thing I'll say about that is most of these reputable people that make tools for games, they're pretty easy to talk to. So talk to them and go over sort of your vision and your planning and figure out who you like working with best, and then just come up with sort of a long tail plan. And, you might work with them. We usually meet people and then 2 years later we work with them. So it takes a lot of time until you have the right game to work. Just because you work with one partner for one game, it probably won't work for the next game. And then you might get big enough and build your own, but just start simple, get shit done, make money, and then figure out what your next enterprise level solution is.
Sounds like good advice. All right, we'll shift gears here a little bit. Go back to some naming some games. All right, game that you think nails video monetization, and doesn't suck. Can't be your own game, can't be your friend's cousin's game. Something you actually like to play that you will, as a consumer, not a business person. Yeah, I'll watch an award video for that. Anyone? Samir?
Words with Friends.
Safe choice, but a good one.
Yeah. A lot of ads.
Yeah, it's good. Hey, years later, everyone's still playing it. Yeah, it's a good one.
It's a little old, not as old school as Donkey Kong, but Temple Run 2. I think they nail it. I think they do a good job. Get a couple. Hey, got a hand there.
Nice.
I'm playing Idle Miner and Tap Mania right now, and they're both idle games, but they do a good job of bonus to keep you coming back. And the ads are nice and short. And personally, I don't really like playables in it, so it's nice. No Game of War ads yet, so I really like that.
They're hard to avoid. Anyone else?
Yeah.
All right, fine.
I hope I'm not going to be fired.
GameLoft title.
I hope I'm still going to stay, but yeah, I would say World with Friend, me too.
All right. Cool. All right, so, in those games, as developers, you're always thinking about user retention. Right? You touched a little on this earlier, Josh, but what kind of tools and analysis and deep dives in the data are you guys doing to make sure that everything you're doing around monetization is effective and that you're not losing players? Maybe walk through what does that analysis you did actually look like? You start with a specific cohort and you're A/B testing that versus a control group, or what are the nuts and bolts of that?
It's more looking at successful games and be like, how come we don't know how to do this? And then everyone freaking out and trying to figure it out. But really, I think if
how does GameLoft do it?
I think I'm in the same boat as a lot of other developers where you're trying to figure out what to measure, and the only way you really can figure that out is by making some huge mistakes. And so that's where we're finally digging into the data. And I think more so than not with developers is we're logging a lot of data, but we're probably not logging the right data. And it's just looking at what solution we want to find and working backwards. So right now we're really working on two things. One of them because I saw a GameLoft talk on how to come up with a good algorithm for churn and to show people your own ads before them. So we're experimenting with when we have no fill on ads, or the first placement for ads is we show our own games in the network just to remind players, and then we're tracking that, and we've found so much stuff we weren't tracking. So we're getting better at tracking stuff. And secondly, we're trying to look at how we can make ads or any engagement in the game a positive experience and look at the ROI on that. So every time you're able to touch the player with a video ad or a message or a push notification or an email or whatever, you want it to be, you're giving them something amazing, so they want to make sure that they stay engaged with you. It's never you're just asking them for something because, I mean, you don't really have any right to ask the player for something because they don't get anything for it, right? You're just saying, like, check this out. It has to be like, we have this amazing offer for you because you're a value player and do that. And we base that model off of the big scam, which is like hotel points. Where everyone's collecting hotel points and they're at a different like magical RPG level. Like, hey, why are you in that line? It's like, I'm elite platinum. It's like, why the fuck am I not elite platinum?
I'm diamond.
I should be platinum by now. I'm only diamond. And so everyone's collecting this, but you feel good when you get like upgraded, but you were going to get it before. But if you get it upgraded based on stats, you're like, I'm getting so much XP for this. So we're trying to gamify all those interactions with people so people actually feel like we know what they want. And also being able to give people what they want versus everyone gets the same thing. Right. So that's what we're trying to figure out. Next year I'll probably have a better answer. I don't know.
Awesome. All right. So brand ads versus game ads, what do the metrics show?
It really depends on what the ad is for, and what data you have about the player who's seeing the ad. If you have data about that player which suggests that they're a Tesla buyer or something like that, they're environmental, they have a lot of money, whatever, right? Then that brand ad can be very, very effective. If you don't have that, then you're basically going on, what kind of game is this? What kind of game am I selling here or promoting? Are they similar? But there's weird things there too. You have to test these things because sometimes you find out that people who like oranges also like bananas, right? And you only learn that when you test that. And so you've got to test, and the weirdest correlations pop out sometimes.
And I think it's true. It's different by genre. It's different by user and demo. I mean, I'm not qualified to answer this question because I'm biased towards brand ads because that's what I focus on, but 100% of brand ads don't lead to an app store download. But game ads can be super effective. They can generate a ton of revenue for a game publisher, and if you're smart about it, can be non-competitive.
Yeah, I think it depends on the sophistication of the advertiser. Like you mentioned, some of them are at the level of granularity where they're targeting specific device IDs. They're using data management platforms to target specific demographics, and so the ads are going to be contextually relevant. Some of them are going to be just a blast campaign where no contextual relevance whatsoever, but it's the same high-quality advertising that you might see on television. The issue, I think, is as an app developer, what do you want to show in your app? Do you want to show ads for other games? If is it competitive? Does it take the user out of the experience? Would you rather show a brand ad? And so maybe there's some diversity that or a better blend between the two, but that's sort of the decision you have to make.
For player experience, what we actually do is we like to share our high-level user data with people we're going to run campaigns with. So an example of that is we did a movie trailer, or we did like a trailer for when the show Vikings came out a long time ago, and they were just doing like a market, I don't know what they call it, but they were seeing it was going to take, and they paid on completed view of it, which was awesome, and we ate up all their inventory like immediately. So players really liked that. And another big one we did one a while ago with like a razor company, and it was like a playable through there, but we were able to segment the user base to hit the percentage of users that would, so we went with a game that would have a higher concentration of users that would like that product, and it went really well. So I think one of the things you have to go back to is talking with whoever, instead of just saying like, we want branded ads, you'll say like, this is kind of what our demographic looks like. This is what country it's broken down in. This is what our UA looks like on Facebook and Instagram. This is all the data points, and then they can match you up with somebody that's looking for that exact segmentation. So you're not showing like a soap opera ad to Red Bull people or whatever. You're matching it up, so you're getting the best bang for your buck.
I was wondering what analogy you come up with there. I was a little scared. That's fine. Maybe time for one more question.
Kind of sticking on like the whole branded versus performance side of the business. Heavy game user, play a lot of games that have recorded video in them, typically seeing that same campaign for some performance over and over and over again. So, we keep hearing about brands getting into the rewarded space. Do you think it's going to really come over quickly over the next 12 to 24 months? What's preventing those brands from getting into the rewarded space? Like, what's the honest opinion of why performance campaigns dominate the rewarded space compared to brands? And it's part of the maturity, I think, of the game as well.
I can take that. See, it's a lot depends on as InMobi as a platform, right? We've seen we've seen a surge of brand ads. We are delivering either in form of recorded videos or video stations. A lot depends on the KPIs of the advertisers. So if they're really looking for audience, they're looking for completion rates. Are they looking for viewability pixels to be fired? Are they looking for AVOC completions, audio video completion rates, right? We as a network at a global level have seen a tremendous appetite of these brands, large brands now. As Andrew has been saying, there's still a lot of education to be done, right? At least on our network, which is a very decent sized network, on a daily basis, we've seen a major uplift of these brand ad penetration into the system, reaching these users. And we work a lot of large scale, global gaming, companies and independent developers, right? They always want a better mix of brand ads, right? I think it is by design and nature that the performance kind of dominated for some time. But answering your question, absolutely yes, we are seeing this global trend of 24 months is going to be a way different story. Hopefully yes, it's a big shift.
I think and we might be out of time, I'm not sure, but I think one of the real challenges for that is that multi-touch attribution completely sucks still. And brands know how maybe 30% of their spend attributes to actual downstream revenue, maybe 30% if they're lucky. And so until we get an awful lot better at multi-touch attribution and we understand how that view and this download and that in-store visit and this time my friend talked to me about whatever all sort of sums up to actually a buying decision is going to be challenging.
So what we're hoping for and what our players have been asking for is real brand integration. We're waiting for somebody to break into the market space and solve that for mobile. So I think that might come at the same time. And I always think about, I've been playing EA's NHL hockey forever because I'm from Canada. We have to play that. It's the rule. You have to do that. We all get one of these hats. We have to wear it when we're abroad now. It's just the way the world is now. And so what happened with that whole series was they went from just a generic hockey game and people are like, it's not realistic. So now they've added a whole revenue stream by adding like the actual ads around the hockey rink and making another revenue stream, and no one complains because it looks like the arena. And so our players are constantly asking for in-game real products. But the challenge there is we're developers. We don't have time to do that, but we have lots of people doing that. So I think somebody's going to pivot. Someone wants a great idea, you could pivot. I'll give you some business right away. And it's going to be brand integration. And we could definitely track what those virtual assets sell for through deep linking. And then we can, and then you could have a revenue install stream that way. And some people, we're doing some experiments that way, but no one's really broken out. But that would be a great revenue stream for developers, and I think players would like it too.
Yeah, like from our experience with working with agencies and brands, especially this year more than ever, especially West Coast agencies, we're hearing more and more like, let's do something cool together. I don't want to just run video views. Like, pitch me an integration. And so we kind of have a roster of games that we work with, we know are like kind of ready made for it, that have an appetite for it. And then making, connecting those dots and making the stars align is challenging, but occasionally it does happen. I think we're going to see a lot more of it coming up because it's kind of getting into the lexicon with the brands and agencies. So.
Yeah, the challenge there is just scale, right?
Yeah, so the game has to have the right scale, it has to have the right content, the deal has to work. Trailer Park Boys might be a little edgy for 98% of the brands. It all has to come together, right? So you guys need like Red Bull,
So for GameLoft and on the direct sale, indeed that's what we see more and more, and like those brands want like big integration. And for instance, we have this racing game called Asphalt 8. And so we did some integration where like while you're playing in the race, you see some billboard and you have like the brand that is appearing. And like what we're really working on is like it still takes time to do this, but we try to like create some way to like change the billboard directly from the ad server and like to implement this more and more to reduce the cost, because obviously like today when you need to like do this type of integration, the price point is really, really high and not all the brands are okay to do this. But if you like find a way to like automatize this type of integration, this starts to really get really, really interesting for the brands. Or even like, having a custom car or,
All right, thanks everyone.